and welcome to Kate Anjou's Book Reviews, the place where we shine a light on indie books and their authors. This will be the last episode. For those who don't follow my social media, I recently had my personal accounts hacked and I took a break. And in that time, I realised how much of my life I was spending on this show. And as much as I love it, it was actually affecting my mental health a little bit because of trying to keep up with social media and just the nature of the show, trying to get the word out about these fantastic authors. This isn't my only show. I have 2 other podcasts. I have 3 jobs, and I also have a little girl to raise. So it's kind of a last thing in, last thing out. But I also as well do a lot of work with indie authors through one of my jobs, which is working for Black Thoughts Editorial and Second Round Publishing. You can check those out on X and Instagram. And I basically work as their social media marketing manager as well as their acquisitions manager. So I engage a lot with indie authors, and I'm constantly on social media because of that. And I felt like I could be putting energy into that I was putting into this. And as I say, I love this show, and thank you so much for all the support, whether you've listen to 3 seconds or 3 hours worth of my content, to all the authors who came on and took their time to come and chat to me, who is really just a nobody, and and discuss their work and allow me to put their work on this platform. I really just appreciate every single one of you, and I really hope that at the very least I have introduced you to at least 1 or 2 new authors that you had not heard of before and now have come to really enjoy. If I can just say that I've done that at least once for each author I've had on here, then I will be beyond thrilled. So let me know in the comments if that's been your experience, if you've bought one of these books that I've promoted and you've enjoyed it. Let me know. And I've said before, just please rate and review these books on Goodreads and Amazon and wherever else, because it means so much and it really helps to highlight these books for other readers who maybe don't know about them, and it puts them higher on ranking lists and things like this. And it's so invaluable to these authors. So if there are any that you've come across and you've liked, or whether they've been on this show or not, like any author, indie authors especially, please rate and review, or even just give a rating. It all helps. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's been on, and thank you for everyone who has listened, watched, engaged with, followed me, liked me, anything like that. This has been so enjoyable and so enriching, and it does make me sad to drop it. And you never know, I might pick it up again in future. These things have a way of coming around, but right now I have so many things that I have to prioritize, and unfortunately this was sort of the, as I said, last one in, last one out. But we end on a high, and I have already interviewed the author, and it was such an enjoyable interview, and we really delve into quite a lot of social commentaries and life difficulties and philosophy, and it's a really interesting interview, and we still have our jokes around and things like that as normal, but yeah, Stephanie was an absolute joy to talk to. So Stephanie Kemler is the author, and we are going to be looking into her book Bloodborn, which if you can see just behind me, don't know, and that is Bloodmad, the follow-up. It's a duology, so if you like Bloodborn, check out Bloodmad. I haven't read Bloodmad yet, just because I said in the interview I purposely didn't, because I didn't want it to affect or influence anything that I said about book 1. But as soon as this part is done, as soon as I've finished recording, I'm going to be starting Bloodmad, so very excited for that. So yeah, that is what's going to happen on this episode. So characters. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And as I said, I do like starting with characters because they are the real draw point for me in a book. Now, this book has a plethora of interesting characters. Our main character is a young woman called Mina, and it's definitely an intentional name. There's a Lucy that comes up, there's a Hawthorne, there's a hawk, there's lots of Gothic literary references, and that is intentional, and it's referenced in the book as well. So, you know, I want no eye rolling from anyone. But yeah, so we follow Mina, and she's this young woman who has suffered a lot of trauma from her childhood through relationships. She was in an insanely sadistic and abusive relationship, both mentally and physically. And we meet her when she's just come out of sort of rehab, dealing with that. And she's on the road with her rock star brother, Neezy, or Eb, or Ebenezer, which is his full name. So she calls him Neezy, other people call him Eb. I'll probably call him Neezy because, you know, I do feel like he's my brother now. But he's this very caring, very much a fraternal presence in her life. You know, they are very close. She feels safe with him. They, you know, talk to each other. He allows her to be vulnerable with him and makes her, as I said, makes her feel safe. You know, she suffers from nightmares and night terrors, and you know, she'll climb into his bed and he'll stroke her hair till she sleeps, things like that, you know. So there is a true brother-sister bond there. And he is a wonderful character. He's just very cool, very loving. He's quite tough as well. He's openly gay, which is really nice to see. There's a lot of representation for gay people in this book. Mina herself is bisexual. She has relationships with both men and women, and we see both of those in this book. And yeah, Mina is a character when we first meet her, she's in this extremely vulnerable stage of her life, and she has gone through a lot, is going through a lot. She is an artist. She writes graphic novels, like gothic, bloody graphic novels. So that's awesome. And she's just trying to find her place in the world. And as the story progresses, so does her character. We get a really great character arc from her, and not just because she finds herself, and not just because, you know, there are things that happen to this character where she is forced to look in the mirror. She is forced to make decisions and have decisions made for her that affect everything going forward. So this isn't some cutesy kind of like coming of age. It's a coming of age story for sure, but it is not cute. It is brutal. And Mina grows in order to be able to overcome these things that happen to her. Part of her growth comes from a character called Marston. He is our first romantic interest that we see. Not her first romantic interest in life by any means, but it's the first one that we see. And he's on the road with the band, along with her and her brother's band. And they have this really beautiful connection over literacy, and they share each other's favourite books. And, you know, Carmilla is one of those for Mina, which is very kind of telling, given her background and what happens to her. It's a very kind of like, very apt that would be one of her favorite books that she just reads again and again. So if you know anything about Carmilla, like, not to go into spoilers or anything like that, but you'll kind of get a vibe of what I mean. And he really encourages her art. He loves her art. They go on these little day trips together, and it's very, very sweet. And he's just, you know, when he's what she needs really during this time of her life. But then things happen, and I don't want to go into too much spoilers, but, you know, if we're going to be talking about all the main characters, the next main character I'm going to talk about is Gregor, and he is the second male romantic lead in this book that we have for Mina. We talk about it in the interview, but basically Mina is a vampire. And she comes clean to Marsden, who doesn't know anything about vampires existing, or let alone that his girlfriend is a vampire, you know? And he rejects her, and she ends up going through some things. I'm going to try and keep that vague if I can, but she goes through some things, some changes, some, you know, life-altering occurrences. And she ends up moving back with one of her other brothers. She's got several brothers, and this one is Hawthorne, and he's this very straight-laced, very kind of conservative, traditional guy who's also a vampire, you know. And they live in this kind of community of this, like, essentially this this vampirical community, and it's kind of a blood cult, but it's kind of one of those blood cults that are kind of nice, if there is such a thing. But they welcome Mina, and, you know, she repents for the things that she's done, which, again, I don't want to go into too much detail about because I don't want to spoil it, but there are things that the community and she feels like she needs to repent and confess. And after that, they welcome her with open arms, and she ends up in this relationship with one of the family's sons called Gregor, and he's a bit of a wild card. He's a bit of a bad boy, you know, but he has such love for her, and Marsden helped to ground her, whereas Gregor helps to lift her, I think, and he embraces fully who she is and supports her and wants to help her with these struggles that she goes through, and he doesn't shy away, and he is her rock in a lot of ways. And so those are kind of our main players. I've left one out on purpose because, in my opinion, save the best till last. We have Lucy, Lucy, you see, and she is the villain of the piece. God damn it, she is evil. She is Mina's ex-partner, ex-girlfriend, and I'm pretty sure, it has been a couple of weeks now since I've read it, but I'm pretty sure that she is Mina's first love. And she manipulates the shit out of that and abuses Mina emotionally. She cuts her off, she isolates her, all of the classic abuser techniques to essentially have complete control and power over someone. And we find out as the book goes on that she essentially makes Mina a free-for-all buffet for her and her friends, her, you know, because she's a vampire too. And there are two types of vampires. I'm going to go into that in the next section, but there are two types of vampires: Bloodborn and Bloodmad. And Bloodborn essentially just live everyday lives as much as they can, and they drink blood, but they don't victimize people. Whereas Bloodmad just go nuts. They are your typical kind of what you kind of think of a horror vampire. You know, they have no remorse, they just feed. It's a very sexual thing. It's, you know, it's very frenzied, and it's just pure base instinct and drive. So they're very two different types of creatures, and Lucy is blood mad. And there is a real shame in being blood mad from the perspective of the Bloodborn community. You don't associate with the blood mad. You don't, you know, they're to be feared, they're to be put down, that, you know, there's a real segregation there. And this further endangers Mina because, you know, she's in a relationship with someone who's blood mad, and she loves her, and Lucy is so charming and beautiful and mesmerizing and just classic narcissistic traits that, you know, entice someone in, and you think, how can you let this happen? How can you? But it's that type of person where you cannot see the woods for the trees, and you just put yourself in denial and think, oh, it'll be okay, or like, they do love me, or, you know, I can do this to prove my love for them, and all of those really harmful mentalities when you're in that situation. And but at the same time, she is blood mad, and so again, Mina can't reach out to anyone. She can't admit to anybody the situation that she's in for fear of being rejected by her loved ones and not helped, and also as well out of complete fear of Lucy and what Lucy could do to her. So yeah, and the games that Lucy plays in this book, the way that she gets inside Mina's head, and you don't know, and you genuinely don't know, and Mina doesn't know that, you know, like, whether is that my mind, is that my like psychosis, is that paranoia, or is it Lucy playing mind games? Is she able to get inside my head? Because there is this kind of ability, like, the more you drink blood straight from the vein, the more kind of power you get in that way, and the more influence you get. And so, you know, it's very possible that Lucy could be just, you know, manipulating Mina's dreams, her thoughts, her visions. But equally, it could just be psychosis, it could be paranoia, it could be, you know, PTSD, it could be a number of different things. So that's a really kind of interesting thing. And when you're reading the book, you feel this presence of Lucy, and you don't know, is that her, is that Mina, is that, you know, it affects you as a reader as well, which is just, it's such a powerful tool that Stephanie's used here. So yeah, so those are sort of our main players. There are other characters that come in. You've got like the twins that are, you know, Mina's other brothers that are very, I say mischievous. It makes them sound like Fred and George Weasley. They are so much darker than that. Oh my God. And like, but they are very funny, and they, I want to say they're harmless. They're not harmless, but like, they're not evil either, you know. They love their family. They, you know, they just want to have fun. It's just that their version of fun is kind of extreme. So yeah. So yes, those are the characters. So I'm going to talk a bit about the lore of Bloodborne. I don't often do this, but this book is just so rich with lore, and there's definite influences from other like novels and literature and mythology, but it has a very sort of different take on what we think of as vampires. Yes, there's the bloodthirsty vampire, but like how you get there and things is a little bit different. And there's like a big background to how it kind of all began. So you have, as I said in the last section, you have Bloodborn and you have Bloodmad. So you Bloodborn, and you can become Bloodmad if you drink straight from the vein. Like you drink hot blood, basically. So the way that Bloodborns feed is that they have a willing participant or donor, you know, and they cut themselves and they pour it into a cup or a bowl or something, and they sort of leave it for a minute to let it kind of still, and then that person drinks that blood, and that's the way that you can feed without becoming blood mad. If you drink straight from the vein, then even just once, you turn blood mad, and that is that frenzied, bloodthirsty, typical kind of vampire. You know, you lose all inhibitions, you don't think about guilt, you don't think about consequences, remorse, anything, you know. And that's the, you know, you're that kind of vampire that, you know, we're most kind of like familiar with. So yeah, but like ages and ages ago, and when I say ages, I mean literal ages, like way back when, there was this rampage of blood mad vampires, and we start the book out with this with this village who are hiding behind closed doors, and they are listening out, and they can just hear the Bloodmad go on this absolute frenzy, and they create this sort of religion to protect themselves. And there's all this scripture, and there's all these words that they have to say when they feed, when they, you know, perform rituals, anything like that. And you know, and when I say that the scripture, I mean it's you know, no different to Christians you know, saying grace around a table. You know, you just have these words that you say, and it, you know, it just sort of allows a blessing onto whatever it is that you're doing, right? And there's all these rules that they have to follow, and it's very culty in the respect that it's very secular. You know, they keep everything very in-house, and over time, you know, as people want to do, like they'll, you know, you have people going off and families moving away and just sort of living as much of a normal life as they want to. You know, like for example, like Neezy and things, he's in a band, he goes traveling, and you know, all this, you know, so there's that side of living as well. But for those who stayed in that kind of culture and that kind of society, they live in these kind of like these communities. I've sort of mentioned it before, Hawthorne, who is one of Mina's brothers, he's the eldest, and you know, he lives in one of these communities, and he is a priest. He's training to be a priest, but he is a priest. He's very kind of conservative, and he doesn't approve of certain lifestyles that his siblings have taken on, you know, but he also has a very kind of like, there's a whole other thing going on between him and Mina, which makes their relationship very fractured. But yeah, this society is very kind of very conservative and secular, and you know, they follow this law, they follow these traditions, and you know, and they believe that they are happier as a result, and you know, they all work together and things. But there's like a lot of bloodletting, there's a lot of blood worship, there's a whole thing about women's menstrual cycles. Like they essentially live by these cycles, you know, all of their life events, like even proposing and getting married, and you know, all of these things are all done at certain points of the cycle, so that you know, you're most fertile, and you know, and all of this. If you want to be forgiven for any kind of transgression, like, you know, if there's anything that you've done that you feel you need to confess and seek forgiveness for, then you have to be essentially drained of your blood, almost, like not to the point of death obviously, but like kind of close to. And it's supposed to be like a cleansing, you know, so there's all of this kind of stuff going on. And in the meantime, Bloodmad are just in the background, just like going nuts and you know, having orgies, and you know, so you really have to kind of think like, who's got it right, you know? No, I'm just but like, it's very interesting, these two parallels, and being that Mina has kind of lived in both worlds. So she's, in fact, she lived in all worlds. She's kind of lived in the Bloodmad world through her relationship with Lucy. She's lived in kind of like the more normal, quote unquote, world, you know, being on tour with Neezy. And then lastly, she goes and lives with Hawthorne, who's you know, in this very traditional community, and she starts to adopt these practices, and after everything she finds a kind of peace there. You know, she starts to feel like she's found her place. She starts to form relationships that are healthy, and friendships that, you know, are sincere, and she sort of adopts like not a new family, but she starts to sort of see healthy looking families, because hers was so, well, unhealthy. You know, there's awful things that happen to her as a result of some of these traditions and laws, and you know, the attitudes that people, you know, especially the more conservative characters, the attitudes that they place on certain atrocities are just mind-boggling. You know, it's very victim blaming, there's a lot of denial, there's a lot of, you know, these things that unfortunately we still see a great deal of today. And so when you have you know, Mina tell of these awful things that have happened to her, or, you know, as readers, we witness these awful things happening, they kind of get explained away or pushed under the carpet, or, you know, anything like that. It's unfortunately relatable because, you know, we see things like, if it's not happening to us, it's probably happening to a loved one, or we see it in media, or, you know, and yeah, it's a very interesting look at this sort of social commentary from a supernatural standpoint, you know. And it makes things like that is what make this book so relatable. I'm sort of veering off the law here, but I think it's worth saying. I say in the interview as well, like, this book really kind of reminded me of something like Buffy, the TV show. Just one of the reasons why I feel like Buffy is so timeless, and it has just, it's still considered like some incredible television today, is because although it's vampires and werewolves and witches and all of these, you know, things that aren't real, the problems that are wrapped up in these supernatural events are very real. You know, like, Buffy goes to school on the Hellmouth because school can feel like hell. You know, she has to battle these vampires when she goes to college, who, for the first time ever, she gets really kind of trounced by, you know, very middleman villains, because you can feel at college like even the most simplest of things is just so overwhelming, you know. So it's kind of like this here, you know, you have these people that have very, very real lives and problems and struggles and identities, and although it might be tied up in more supernatural things, the relatability is still very much there. So yeah, like, that's the law, and also a little bit of social commentary for you. So I want to talk about some of the deeper themes. We have themes of things like religion, we have themes of queer representation, and we have themes of things like abusive relationships. There are lots of other themes in this book. To be fair, like, this book has so much depth to it. I could honestly talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I could probably write an essay on this book. I won't, and I'm not going to go on for hours and hours. And I may be doing this a little bit of a disservice. I'm not going to go into these things too hugely, but I would say that if any of those things sort of appeal to you in terms of what you want to read, go check this book out. It's rife. So yeah, and I can only imagine that those things progress onto, you know, Bloodborn, so Bloodmad rather, the second book. So yeah, so let's start with religion, as we were kind of talking a little bit about the more conservative attitudes and things. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of a cult. Most cults are based on some form of religious ideology, or at least a very twisted and warped sense of religious ideology. Personally, I don't really feel like those people are religious. I think that they take religion and twist it into something awful. And I know that a lot of people have a thing, I'm not going to get into this, but I know a lot of people have a thing about religion. I personally have no issue against religion. What I have an issue is when people use religion to spread hate and to control others and make money off people. That's when I have an issue with it. But I don't feel like that's religion. I feel like religion is faith and hope and believing in something greater than yourself, and whatever that looks like. Anyway, so in this book, they don't have, well, there will be Christianity and things, but it's not Christianity, even though we would probably relate their practices and belief structures more to Christianity than maybe other religions. And that just might be because in the Western culture, we are more exposed to Christian belief structures and things. But I feel like when I was reading this book, it was kind of like a commentary on Christianity. And also Stephanie has grown up with religion very much part of her life, and it is still part of her life. So it would make sense that that is the kind of parallel that we're looking at. And what's really great is that it doesn't show this cult in just, hey, they're conservative, and hey, they do bloodlettings, and whatever. There's a real warmth. There's a real sense of community, of family, of forgiveness, and taking people in and giving them a home when maybe they don't have a home anywhere else. Like Mina has gone through every sort of abuse that you can really think of. She's just broken when she arrives there. It's heartbreaking. And she finds this safe space, who love her, accept her, want her there, form relationships with her that are good and healthy. And I think that it's a really interesting way of showing this, because not everything is black and white. Not everything is good, not everything is evil, apart from Lucy. Lucy is just pure evil. She is. But in real life, and it's very much portrayed here, these people aren't perfect. This way of living isn't for everyone. Yes, there are dark aspects, and yes, there are questionable ethics and things going on, but they truly believe that they're doing good. They truly believe that the way that they're living and the belief structure that they hold is for the best, for themselves and the people around them. It's not done through hate. It's not done through any kind of maliciousness. It's not done through power grabbing or, trying to, build an empire or earn money or, anything of those sorts of traits. It is rooted in a place of safety and love. And I really enjoyed that, because I feel like that's something that doesn't often get looked at in that way. I feel like there's, when it comes to secular communities, when it comes to religion, when it comes to those sorts of spaces and lifestyles, that there's a lot of stigma against it, that it must be archaic and it must be, wrong in some way. And as I said, they're not perfect, but what is in life? So I feel like this was a really refreshing representation of religion and of these sorts of communities. And there's ups and downs within it all, and there'll be times where you're reading it, and particularly for me, who's very liberal and who's very kind of a progressive minded person, I was like, ooh, okay, that's not cool, or like, oh God, I could not deal with that, or, but then there were times where I was like, that's really nice. I'm really glad for Mina, and I'm glad that she's finding peace, So yeah. With gay representation, so we have Mina, who's bisexual, and we have her brother Nizi, who's gay. He's openly gay, and he is very chilled and relaxed, and he's just, it's not his personality. He's just a normal everyday guy who happens to be a vampire and is gay. And I love that about this book, about how someone's sexuality is not a tick box exercise. It's not a gimmick. It's not, hey, look at my, cool queer book. It's not that. And there's no like gay erasure here. There's no, people just kind of accept. There is one scene at a dinner table where Nizi and Mina are having dinner with Gregor's family, and he's talking about himself being gay, and not in any kind of explicit terms or anything like that, but he's like, yeah, I've got a boyfriend, and blah, blah. And Gregor's mum sort of says, oh, it's she's like, I've got no problem, but maybe it's not appropriate dinner conversation, or like don't talk about it in front of the kids, or something along that nature. I can't entirely remember exactly. It might have been both of those things, honestly. But and it's kind of like, it's a very natural conversation because those conversations happen in real life. You know, you have someone, oh, like, oh yeah, I got no problem with people being gay, I just don't want to see it. It's like, but you're quite happy to watch heterosexual couples hook up on screen, or you don't care if they're like, you know, hugging each other in public, or, you know, and or you can have a discussion about a heterosexual relationship without batting an eye, but because it's gay, it's deemed as something dirty, or something that, like, you know, has to be okayed, like, which is just ridiculous to me. You know, but it's a very natural, very authentic discussion, that happens a lot in life with gay people. I've experienced it as someone who's pansexual. I've had to justify my sexuality on more than one occasion. You know, and it's a struggle sometimes. It's just very tiring, you know. But again, Neezy doesn't make any apologies for who he is. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't make a scene, but neither does he, you know, hide or shy away from who he is and his sexuality. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't hide his boyfriend. He doesn't, you know, none of those things. So again, that was very refreshing. It was really nice to see. And part of its authenticity is the fact that Mina's relationship with a woman, that's the real abusive relationship, because I think you can kind of do that overly supportive thing where gay people can do no wrong, and it's like, that's not how humanity works, I'm afraid, unfortunately. You know, gay people are just as capable of being abusive, and, you know, and those things. And again, it's a very kind of authentic thing, because it's not the only gay relationship that we see represented in this book. You know, it's not trying to demonize, for lack of a better term, like, no pun intended, it's not trying to demonize gay people or gay relationships and saying, oh, gay relationships are abusive, because we see very healthy gay relationships within this book. It's just a very authentic look at the entire scope of relationships as a whole: straight, gay, abusive, healthy, whatever. Every type of relationship is explored in this book, and that is, to me, that's true representation. So yeah. And then the last one was, what's the last thing that I was saying? Religion, sexuality, and not sure, let me just double check. Abusive relationships, which is stupid that I forgot that, because we just talked about it. So yeah, the last thing is abusive relationships. So as I just mentioned, you know, we see one of the biggest abusive relationships being between two women. It's awful what happens to Mina. It's awful how Lucy takes advantage of her, uses her. She's so sadistic, and she delights in it. She doesn't apologize. There's no, oh, sorry, I'll do better next time. Oh, it's just when I drink. She doesn't apologize. She makes no apologies. She isn't remotely remorseful. She relishes it. She delights in it. She'll do it again and again and again. She says that she loves Mina. She'll say, like, oh, I love you, Mina. We should run away together. We're supposed to be together. It's you and me, babe, against the world. That kind of, all of those kind of sentiments. But really, Mina is just her plaything. Mina is just a source of entertainment. Mina is just an obsession. Someone who she knows she can completely manipulate and destroy. And that's why she desires her. That's why she obsesses over her. It's not because she loves her in, like, the way that you want to be loved. It's not that, you know, she wants the best for Mina. She wants her because she just wants complete power over her, and she doesn't want anyone else to. And again, yes, this is all within kind of vampiric, you know, desire and tension and all of this, but happens in real life too, unfortunately. So yeah, again, these are things that even if you've not had that experience yourself, you probably know someone who does, or you've at least heard about it, and or you can at least just, you know, relate to it on a human to human kind of level. So yeah, but that's not the only kind of abusive relationship that Mina undergoes, unfortunately. I'm not going to say that Marsden's abusive, he's not, but, you know, he does reject her when she tells him that she's a vampire. That's a really hard read. That's really hard for Mina to go through. You know, this is the first person that she's loved, that she's let down her walls for, other than Neezy, since she escaped from Lucy, since she's come out of rehab. And she finally breaks down these walls enough to be truly honest about who she is, at the risk of being completely ostracized by her family and her community, because that is a huge no-no. Marsden is a human. He's not part of that world. And that is a huge transgression. So she's really not only just letting herself be vulnerable, but really putting herself out there. And for him to reject her is just, oh, it's heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. So although he's not abusive, you know, it's still that thing of, oh, I'm going to love you, but on my terms, you know, which in a way is kind of abusive. You know, the whole point of love is that you love someone for who they are, no matter what. And yeah, you don't have to accept bad behavior from someone, you know, and you can work together to better improve a situation, or you know, help a person deal with some things that are negatively impacting theirs and your life. But you still love them, you know. You don't go, oh, sorry, I'm not going to love you anymore, bye. You know, like, and it just, and again, kind of going back to the sexuality thing, it kind of really reminded me of coming out to people, where people have just, you know, said, oh, actually, I'm not okay with that. And it's just like, well, I'm still the same person who you were hanging out with and forming connections with. I'm still that person. I'm just this person as well. But that was always the person that I was. So I don't understand why it makes a difference, because I've always been that person, you know. And it's a very complex scene. It's a very complex set of chapters, and Stephanie does such an excellent job of conveying all of that emotion. It's wonderful, heartbreaking, but wonderful. And then Mina undergoes a lot of abuse from her family as a child. There is a really awful recollection of something that happened to her when she was 13 during a ceremony that is supposed to be a celebration of her womanhood. She comes on her period for the first time and it's celebrated. Unfortunately, there's someone who takes horrific advantage of her, and you know, this is the first time where she feels rejected. This is the first time where she feels like actually maybe people are harsh and people won't always be supportive, especially the people who you feel should support you the most, you know, family, parents, brothers, sisters, you know, name it. And she feels a level of rejection from pretty much every one of those categories. And it really starts this journey of abuse that unfortunately is, again, very common in real life. You know, once you have been abused once, it very much leaves you open for future abuse because of the trauma that's been set by that first instance of abuse, and you know, either dealing with that or not dealing with that. And you know, this she's a girl, she's 13, and suddenly she loses pretty much all her family, and I can't even imagine what that must be like. And I'm kind of getting emotional with it because, again, this is a fictional book, but these things aren't fictional. These things happen. These things that are completely not our fault, that are done to us, that are taken from us. And the places of comfort, the places of safety and support, when they're no longer there during the hardest times, as a child, what are you supposed to do? So I adore Mina because of everything that she overcomes, and she doesn't do it with grace. She doesn't do it easily. She makes mistakes. She fucks up. But she's so authentic, and she's still, after everything, a good person. And I have a real feeling that that is going to get twisted up and chewed up in book 2. So I'm clinging on, you know. But for at least for the conversation of Bloodborn, yeah, she is so vulnerable but so strong. And it was a genuine joy to read her story, as horrific as it is for most of the time. It was wonderful. So yeah, there's that. So this is probably going to be the last thing that I talk about. I feel like this book, its major merits are the characters and the themes. And I feel like I've gone into that enough without spoiling it too hard, hopefully. It's very difficult to talk about this book without sort of like letting on some of the events that happen and things. But one thing I do want to talk about is Stephanie Kemler's writing. This was the first book of hers that I'd read. I had known of her for quite a while through Instagram, and, you know, we share some of the same online friends. And me and her have been chatting for a while, and we get on really well. She's an absolute babe. Like, she's just so lush. And I really hope that you listen to the interview as well, because it's definitely worth it. She's so smart. She's so smart, and she's so funny, and she's so lovely. She is an absolute powerhouse of a writer, and I really truly wish her all the best in her endeavours, and anything she's got coming up. And I am, you know, very lucky to be privy to a few little hints and clues as to some things that she's got going up. And all I can say is watch this author. She is very exciting. So yeah, keep an eye on her. But yeah, her writing. She is a very prolific writer. She is a very talented writer. She writes so many different types of characters, and they all are so unique. They are all so clearly distinguished. We see it from multiple POVs as well. So the fact that she's able to not only write these characters on paper, so to speak, no pun intended, but to really get inside their minds and convey that from their perspectives is such a talent to me. Anyone who can do that, I just feel like bravo, man, because like I probably couldn't. I think every single one of my characters would just be a different version of myself, honestly. So and I know that there's, you know, writers do put themselves into it, and there's definitely, you know, aspects of Stephanie's character and her experiences and things, not that she's undergone any kind of like horrific abuse or anything like that, but, you know, growing up in the church and growing up in those kinds of, you know, environments and stuff like that is very much like something that is her. But, you know, she's writing about all of these events and occurrences that, you know, she hasn't had experience in, and she's done the research, and she's spoken to people who have gone through these kinds of experiences. And, you know, she writes so respectfully, authentically, and beautifully. She really takes each and every single one of these characters and explores them, and you were along on that journey with them. And she just comes out with like sentences that are nothing short of poetry. And, you know, there are several times where I was like taken aback by certain prose or certain, you know, sentences. I've just been like, that, oh God, that was good. Like, oh fuck yeah. Like, you know, like, yeah. So not only does she write great characters, not only does she write great stories with complex plots and complex narratives and you know, fascinating characters and people and history, and rewrites mythological lore and creates new religions. She actually just writes very well. You know, so as I said, please go check out her stuff. These two are out already, and she's got some other projects lined up, and yeah, like, I know that she's gonna light a fire. She really is. She already has, in our little section of Bookstagram and things, our little online book community, and the writing community. But I can just see that fire spreading, and it's going to be beautiful. Yeah. So that brings me to my conclusion. If you can't tell, I love this book. I'm so excited to read Bloodmad. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. I'm actually going on holiday soon, so I think I'm going to be cracking it out then. Give me some real good focus time. And I have had such a pleasure getting to know Stephanie and interviewing her and discussing this book and reviewing this book, reading this book. And I am so honoured and delighted that she is my final guest. She's been someone I've wanted to get on for quite a while. She's definitely one of the authors that I had in mind when I started this series. Unfortunately, I didn't get to everyone that I wanted to, but maybe in future, if I give this a resurgence, then I can get some of those other authors on. But please go check out the other interviews and other reviews. And, you know, I'm still on the social medias. My Instagram page is now kind of more of a personal page, but it's still very kind of like book content heavy. I'll still be doing little mini reviews of like ARC reviews and also as well just like any kind of books that I read. As I said before at the beginning, I'm doing a lot of work for Black Thoughts Editorial and Second Round Publishing. So you'll see promos for that, and you'll see you know, authors that we're representing through those companies and stuff about their works. But I also will still be putting up little bits here and there. So, you know, just funny things, sharing ridiculous gothic, you know, stuff on my stories. So feel free to go check that out. So there has been a change of name on that account because the show's ended. So I felt Kate Anjou's book reviews like, given that the content going forward isn't going to be specific to that, I felt it needed a name change. So now it is Between the Pages 37. So at Between the Pages 37. My TikTok's still the same, Kate Anjou's book reviews. I don't really post so much on there anymore. But, you know, if there's an ARC review or something, then I'll crack that up. And I am now also on X, formerly known as Twitter. Literally just joined that, so give me a following. I've not got loads, so help me build it up. And you can find me there of Turning of Pages. So yeah, and you'll see my smiling face. And then if you're interested in the work that I'm doing for Black Thoughts and Second Realm, they can also be found on X and Instagram. So on Instagram, it's Black Thoughts Editorial. So at Black Thoughts Editorial, and on X, it's Editorial BT. Second Realm Publishing has just set up an X account, literally like today as I record this, and that is at Second Realm 5, the number 5. So any numbers that I've said on my handles or anyone else, it's always the numbers. So yes, that's Second Realm 5. So you'll be able to find us there, and you'll find author announcements, and I put up content pretty much most days, funny reels, memes, all stuff about books and editing and writing, and it's all very relatable and kind of, you know, but yeah, please give us a follow. And you can follow Stephanie on Instagram at Writing Stephanie Kemler. That's pretty much where she is. She's not on really any other social media platforms, so I would so recommend that you follow her, because like she puts out fantastic content and really promotes her stuff, so you'll really get like an idea of who she is as an author, the energy and vibes of her books, you know. So, and like she puts up really thought-provoking posts as well, like nothing controversial, but just, you know, her thoughts and musings, and they're always so interesting and engaging. So yeah, please go check her out at Writing Stephanie Kemler. You can buy her books on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited and Kindle, and also through Curious Corvid Publishing. Also, as well, I suggest you give them a follow, because they are a fantastic publisher. And Jeremy, for example, Jeremy Magegi, who Jeremy Magegi, I'm blanking on his name. Jeremy, who I interviewed a couple of episodes ago. He's with Curious Corvid as well. So, you know, they do have some really great authors. So yeah, go follow them too. And that's it. That's Kate Anjou's book reviews coming to a close. And just once more, thank you to everyone who's been part of this journey, no matter how big or how small. I love you all. You're wonderful. And I hope you've enjoyed the content. And most importantly, I hope you found some really amazing books and authors to have as part of your literary world.